Welcome to another edition of Cope's Campus. On this edition, it's March Madness time, baby. And with it being March Madness time, I can only bring in one guest that I know that's going to be ready to talk some sports and bring it to me. Welcome, everybody. My man, Terrance Vaughns. How you doing today, brother?
What's going on, brother? What's going on? Ready to talk some basketball.
That's what I like. I like to hear that, but I don't like that hat, though. That's disgusting.
Hey, you know what it is. You see the trophies in the background.
I do. So, my man Terrance, I've known you forever. Appreciate you for coming on, taking time out of your day to come on here. You are a avid sports player, avid, sports enthusiast, and you know a lot about sports. Like I said, I've known you forever. I feel like we don't have the same takes, but we understand where we come from. When it comes to sports, you like all the good guys, and I like all the losers. It seems like.
I mean, but lovable losers need love too.
Yeah, I'm done with them though. I'm done with them. Yeah, I told you during this session, you're going to figure out. I got 7-8 teams I like, so we're going to do that. So we're going to start in the West region. Do you have your West bracket up?
Yep.
All right, and in the West region, they have the number one stunners. Arizona over there. By the way, The West, I see that Arizona's the number one seed. Obviously, number two is Purdue. They end up winning the Big Ten, so they're number two. Out of this bracket, before we get to your Elite Eight, things like that, when you're looking at this bracket, what are one or two teams besides Arizona that point out that you're looking at that says, hey, I think they can make it to the Sweet 16 or the Elite Eight?
There's a couple teams. The first one I'll start with is Arkansas. Arkansas's got good guard play. They got Acuff Jr. down there who's going to be a high lottery pick. They've got Malik from back here in Western Pennsylvania, Thomas, that has been a great freshman. I think he might have scored his career high most recently in the SEC tournament.
Yeah.
So they got some really good guard play, and the NCAA is all about guards at this point. So who can control the game, who can control the pace, and then you got Cal. Cal's done it before. He's been there before. He's got experience, and so I think they're a team to watch. Although they're in that 4 seed, I could see them pulling upset against an Arizona if they can get hot and those guards can get loose. The other team that I would say that quiet is kept, just watch out for, is Missouri. And it's only because they've got an inside track to home field advantage, basically. So as a 10 seed, you normally wouldn't look at somebody like that. But their first 2 games potentially could be in the Missouri area and be home games for them. So as you know, when you get that crowd, that following, that's a little bit of extra juice for you, and that could contribute 2 to 3 points a game right there, which could swing the difference of their outcomes.
And you're right. And I saw Missouri in this bracket, and I said, if they can get past Miami, I can see them beating Purdue in the second round. Yeah. Like I said, they can get past Miami. But I also said, if Miami can get past Missouri, I could see them beating Purdue in the second round. Purdue had a good run in the Big Ten championship, right. But coming down the stretch, they were like 4-4 before getting into the championship. But they're doing well right now with the 4 games, 4 wins. You said to Missouri, I say Miami, and then if I piggyback off that, I'm going with another Big Ten team, which is Wisconsin. I believe Wisconsin, they finally found themselves as well in the Big Ten tournament. They made it to the semifinals, lost to Michigan. I mean, who doesn't? So I can see them coming out beating Arizona, but coming out of that West region, in your mind, who you got coming out?
I mean, I think when I think about this time of year, right, like you got to talk about offense and defense. It's not just one or the other, because offensive teams can get handcuffed by great defensive teams, and great defensive teams might not score enough to win games. And so there's only a select few teams that out there this year that are in the top in terms of offensive and defensive efficiency. And Arizona is one of those teams. They've got height, they've got size, they've got guard play, they've got shooting, they've got some, pretty legit freshmen over there as well that may be a little inexperienced. So that may be, something to watch for in the tournament. But I think they're one of the most complete teams out there that we might see in the tournament. So I think I got them coming out. It's more chalk for me when it gets to Arizona, but I do have some upsets in the Western region.
Okay. And one of those upsets I'm looking for is Missouri. So you might change my mind over there. What do you think? And then we'll get to another bracket. What do you think about the 6-7 matchup? Texas beat NC State on a a buzzer beater last night, or a jumper with a second left, and then BYU with the talented freshman AJ. We know his last name. I always call him Gombanzo Beans. What's his last name?
DeBonza.
AJ DeBonza.
Yeah.
What do you see out of that matchup?
Texas surprised me last night. I actually thought NC State would come in and get hot, and they've got some good guard play and win that game. But, Texas has a couple shot makers on that team. They got a little bit of height and length on their team. They didn't play scared. So Sean Miller, also coming from the Arizona pathway as well, and has got his own playing experience in the tournament. I actually thought they played pretty well. I actually picked them to beat BYU. And the reason I picked them to beat BYU is AJ DeBonza is going to have to average something like 35-8 probably every game for them to win in this tournament, because they don't defend well enough. They will score points, but I don't know that they're going to stop a lot of people, when it matters. And I don't know they're going to have 3, 4, 5 consecutive stops in the second half when you need to go on a run. I just think it's going to be all about their offense, and defense travels in a tournament like this.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. I appreciate that. Now let's get to the Midwest bracket. We got the number 1 seed, my Michigan Wolverines. You want to hear like I'm Johnny Gill. I'm telling you. You got my Michigan Wolverines, the number 1 seed. You got my Tennessee Volunteers, the number 6 seed. And you have Iowa State with all that defense at the number 2 seed. For me, this bracket, I feel like it's going to be a lot of chalk. But give me 1 or 2 teams that you see can make it to about the Sweet 16 and surprise a couple of people.
I'll say the first one is actually Akron. They shoot the ball well. And as we talked about guard play in the tournament, that's going to be a thing that to watch with all these teams, because good guard play can get you out of a lot of situations. It's shot creation, shot making, but also penetration to the line, get to the lane, dribble drives, kick out for threes. So if they're on, similar to like an NC State, they actually could beat a Texas Tech that's without JT Toppin, an Alabama team that I think over the last couple of years, even dating back to last year, can easily score 90 points, but they could also give up 100.
And they have their star. Their star's not playing right now either because of legal issues.
One of their top shooters is actually not playing. That is part of that 3-point barrage. So I think if Akron can get by that 12-5 matchup with Texas Tech, which they're vulnerable, and they get, let's just say Alabama beats Hofstra, I actually think they could actually be one of those sneaky teams that get in. Now, Sweet 16 is probably the limitation to where they go, but I think they actually have a chance.
All right, that's good. Now, we got to wait to see who my Tennessee Volunteers get, after tonight's game. But for me, you see what I'm wearing. I didn't go to Howard. My brother went to Howard. So, I'm Howard adjacent.
My grandfather went to Howard, so I get it.
Yeah. So you're Howard adjacent. So,
adjacent.
We're Howard adjacent. So even though I know my Michigan boys are going to roll tomorrow, I'm showing pride to my brother's Howard Bison, your grandfather's Howard Bison. Now, looking at this, besides Michigan in the Midwest, what other teams can you see coming out of the Midwest?
Yeah, I think you had mentioned could be a chalk type of bracket. I think for me, there's a chance that a Virginia and an Iowa State could actually knock off of Michigan. One of the key things to watch about Michigan is they actually lost their backup point guard. So when you think about what that actually means, Elliot Cadeau, who came from North Carolina, went to Michigan. When he's on, that opens up the floor for all those big guys that they have. But when he's not, they don't have a ton of shooting that can offset, things happening on the inside there. So defensively, if they get against a team that's playing zone, they're not knocking down shots, they could struggle. And when I think about a Virginia, right, Iowa State, they actually play a ton of defense, really strong in that area. You're going to get that. That's why I think they're going to be a tough out. But Virginia actually surprised me in the ACC tournament. They got a guy in the middle. I don't know if he's from Africa or where he's from, but that dude blocked I think it's an ACC record amount of shots.
8 shots.
He might have had 7 or 8 against Duke alone.
He had 8. And he had 8. He had 8 blocked shots. I was like, hold up. I was like, this guy.
Everything. Great timing. Kind of reminds you of like a poor man's Dikembe Mutombo in a way. But, they play defense. Now, they've lost one of their big guys, so that's going to hurt them. And maybe the differentiating factor. But I think one of those 2 teams could actually give Michigan some trouble.
Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head for me. Iowa State for me is they're very defensive minded and they don't make free throws. So they can get you into a battle, but when crunch time for me comes, when I need someone, when you're down one with 5 minutes left and you're in a one-on-one and you miss a shot, you missed a free throw and you come back down and get the bucket, I can't have them going too far because I have Virginia. I do. Even though I'm a Michigan head, my Michigan boys they're gonna get on me, but I have Virginia coming out of this. And just because of what you said, I have them coming out of this bracket. I do. And the reason I have them coming out of this bracket is what you just said. Michigan lost their best three-point shooter in Kaysen, who definitely opens up the floor because he's a knockdown shooter. And without him on there, with Elliot Cadeau, as you know from North Carolina, I know from the ACC because we know I'm a Pitt homer. As we know, Cadeau he's more of a traditional point guard than he is today's point guard because, like you said, he doesn't excel from the three-point line. But if he's on, you're going to be in for a long time that night. But you're going to lag off of him if you say he's 1 for 4. You're going to go into that zone. You're going to lag off of him a little bit so you can muck it up more in the middle for the big man. They're all American. So I have Virginia coming out because of that. I think Virginia, let's be honest, last year they stunk, but this year they got the NIL money to help them out, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. That's what this is about now, right? Yep. So they're back up there, and they have some mature players. I was surprised too against that Virginia Duke game. I think that's what really won me over is the game. Like you said, the shot blocker had 8 blocks, but it's not just the 8 blocks. It's like you said, he knew how to block those shots. He knew how to, not get in foul trouble. So if he can keep doing that, it's going to take them far. So I thank you for that, brother. Absolutely. So lastly, who do you got coming out of that bracket?
So I actually took Michigan for the same reason I took Arizona. Mm-hmm. So Michigan all year, top offensive efficiency, top defensive efficiency. There's only, I think maybe 4 teams that kind of fit that mold in this tournament, and they're one of them. And so I think their size overwhelmingly is going to bother a lot of teams, especially in the first couple of rounds where these teams they're playing, the Howards, the potentially a St. Louis or a Georgia, they're going to get overwhelmed by just the size of Michigan. So I think they'll make it through there. And even their Sweet 16 matchup, I just don't see much trouble for them. It'll be a harder battle once they get to an Iowa State or a Virginia per se. Yeah. But I think their size is just going to be too much. And I actually am looking forward to an Arizona, Michigan in the Final Four. I would love to see
I would love that. I would love that. Trust me, I definitely would. Let's get to the South. I'm leaving your boys last. And that's not because it's the best. It's just because you're on here. So.
It's fine. It is. I understand what you're
So we're going to go to the South bracket where we have the Floridians, the Gators at number 1, and we have Houston, my Houston Cougars at number 2. Yeah. You heard.
Like,
yeah.
What are you, Warren Moon?
Listen, I love Kelvin Sampson, man. He finally he gave up some defense and got a little bit more offense. But we're gonna get more to that. But we're gonna get a little bit more on that. But in this bracket here, see, this bracket for me could be a wild card bracket for me. Outside of Florida, it could be a wild card bracket. Before you get there. Outside of Florida, who can you see making a little bit of noise, a Sweet 16 run, maybe a Elite 8 run?
Yeah, there's actually a couple teams. Vanderbilt actually had an impressive run in the SEC championship there. And, beating Florida the way they did, I can't say that's not going to be in the back of Florida's mind if they end up facing them again, which I actually have them facing off in the Sweet 16. And there's no guarantee that Florida wins that game. Florida is very similar in terms of like a Michigan with the size and things of that nature. They don't shoot it as well as some of the other teams. And so Vanderbilt gave them some trouble in the conference tournament. I think actually Vanderbilt is one of those scary teams that could easily lose in the first round to a McNeese State with the dude that comes out with the glasses, or they could go all the way to a Elite 8. So they're a scary team that I would watch. And for me, I think ultimately Houston is the team. I think, their experience from last year, Sampson's experience from last year, the fact that they're going to be dogs on the defensive end, and then even the route they got to take to get there, I just don't see much trouble for them. Even a number 3 Illinois, if they were to make it, or a North Carolina or a VCU, I just can't see any of those teams having enough offensive power to beat them. So I have Houston actually coming out of the bracket, but I think Vandy's the team to watch.
Okay. All right. I like that. Houston, I've always, like I said, I've always been a Kelvin Sampson guy. You know me, I have to have another team because, my team has definitely
All your
stunk.
teams stink. I understand.
Yeah, so I have to have an offset team. No pun intended. I have to have an offset team. So I can get some joys, right? So Houston's my team, but I went to the Atlantic 10 Conference tournament this weekend, and I saw VCU, and I think VCU can make some noise in the first 2 rounds. I do. I think they can upset North Carolina.
For sure.
I injured North Carolina. I think they can upset injured North Carolina. VCU has enough firepower to deal with North Carolina at that point, but I believe that if they get further than that, I don't think they can beat Florida. I don't think they can beat Houston. But Florida, for me, has been very consistent all year long until Vanderbilt beat the brakes off them. I mean, Vanderbilt came in hotter than 45. They beat my Tennessee Vols the day before. They beat them, and I have very good admiration for Vandy, like you said. I do believe Vandy can beat Florida again if they play again. For me, though, I do have Houston coming out of this, and I talked about it before. Kelvin Sampson always has a great defense. He now has Fleming to go with Sanat and go with the senior shooting guard that's been there a couple years. So I believe that they have this together. I believe they're going to come out of this South bracket. Like you said, if they make it to the Elite Eight, to the Sweet 16, they're going to play at Rice University. That's in Texas. That's almost like a home game for them. So you're going to play against Florida or Vandy. It's going to be a home game for you. You're going to have all your people there. So I believe Houston's coming out of that. All right, let's get to these bums up here. These bums.
Actually, one of the stronger brackets in terms of just coaching experience and depth. But I'll let you go ahead and do your lead-in.
Yeah, you let me. So here we go. Here we go with the East bracket. Of course, the Duke Blue Devils at number 1 are leading the number 1 overall, number 1 in this bracket, which it's well deserved. Then number 2 is UConn. Then, like you said, this is a coaching bracket. At number 3, you got H to the Izzo. You got St. John's in here. We know what Pitino can do. Hey, don't forget my man Jamie Dixon at TCU. Let's just bring him in here too. I forgot. Yeah, my TCU Horned Frogs. I forgot to say that too. My TCU Horned Frogs. So
you own everybody out here.
That means I can't lose.
Yeah, I see. You taking the field for sure.
I'm definitely taking the field. So in this bracket, we know this bracket has the number one, which is Duke. Before we get into them, what 2 or 3 teams or 1 or 2 teams can you see making a run for a little bit in this bracket?
I think St. John's can be scary to a lot of teams. I mean, Pitino's always been a defensive guy. The intensity he's bringing, the experience he's got with numerous teams that he's had over the years with Providence and Kentucky, Louisville, he's going to bring it. And they've got a bad taste in their mouth from last year. And I think that's going to carry over into how they start this tournament. So I don't see them being one of those 12-5 upsets. I actually think that Kansas, St. John's, around the 32 game is going to be a great game. And it's either going to be Bill Self and Peterson show up together and pull it out, or it's going to be Pitino. But either way, I think St. John's can make some noise. Even though I've got Kansas beating them, I think St. John's, if they can get by Kansas, could be a tough matchup for Duke as well. The other team I have here that's kind of, I'd say a little bit more of a dark horse, just watch out for UCF. Only because they've got a couple key wins in their year. They seem to be one of those teams nobody even cares about or even notices that are even playing in games, but they beat Kansas this year. They only lost by, I think it was 7 to an Arizona team. Iowa State, they got thumped pretty good, but, they've played some really tough competition. Arizona a couple times, Houston, beat BYU, beat Texas Tech. So they've got some good wins under their belt that probably go under the radar quite a bit.
Yeah, and you're right. Whenever I saw their resume on Sunday, because I do remember the Arizona game and how close it was, and I forgot some games that I did see that they won that were Power 5 games, that were quad 1 wins, and I'm like, oh man, UCF did that, so that got my mind to thinking they could take on UCLA and they can beat UConn, because UConn, to me, being the 2 seed, if I'm being honest, I think they are the weakest of the 2 seeds. And that's what you're supposed to get as Duke. You're supposed to get the weakest of the 2 seeds, right? I believe that UConn has been so up and down this year. Like, I don't know which UConn is going to come out and play. I really don't. I don't know what Hurley is going to come out. Is it going to be Hurley Bobby Knight? Or is it going to be, Hurley Krzyzewski? I don't know which one we're going to have. You're going to be chilling on the sideline. You're going to be out here, and that your players can't just focus on that. So I can see UCF making some noise. But if I'm going to go with one that's going to make some noise, I believe it's going to be Michigan State. I believe Michigan State is going to get to the Elite Eight to play Duke. That's all I'm going to say about that for right now. But I believe that H to the Izzo. And that's if my man Fears can stop kicking people where the sun don't shine.
Like Shawn Michaels. Like,
man.
Chin music. He's, Ric Flairing it.
Yeah.
He's doing it all.
Yeah, giving cheap shots, man. Like, bro, you got just play ball, fella. Play ball. So that's what I see about Michigan State. I believe the same thing about St. John's, though. Like you said, the first round or two, I can see them making noise because of last year. But I'm going to shout out my TCU Horned Frogs. I believe they're going to have it's only an upset because of 8-9 matchup. But I believe they will beat Ohio State, which, I don't like Ohio State either. So I don't mind saying that. And play Duke. And what's going to happen from there. We know what's going to happen from there. So who do you got coming out of this East bracket?
This was a tough one for me. Based on the experience and these teams that are in this bracket, you got past champions, past coaching champions. You've got Northern Iowa's won some games over the years, like Cal Baptist. You've got a lot of Louisville's injured and wounded with their freshmen. And this was a tough one for me. But as I looked at this bracket up and down, I've changed my answer probably like 3 or 4 times. I think this depends on the health. And Duke, for me, has been the most complete team all year round. However, as much as it pains me to say this, they actually are the most vulnerable right now. Now, Patrick Gumba's not going to play in the first round against Siena. We don't need him against Jerry McNamara. We'll be fine. However, when you get to TCU and potentially that Sweet 16, Gumba's going to play probably the round of 32. The key person to watch for is Foster. We need our general back. We need our point guard back. And Caden Boozer actually stepped up a lot in the last 2 games in the ACC tournament. So I was actually surprised and happy about that he offset a lot of his brother's production, lack of production, I think, in the last game there.
Especially the first half.
Some very key plays. To me, I'd be remiss if I didn't pick Duke here. I think, Kansas is too much of a wild card. St. John's is really good intensity defensively wise, but I don't know that they're going to have enough. And then when I look at the bottom, we beat Michigan State at Michigan State. So we've proven what we can do against them. And if they get UConn, like you said, I don't think UConn's the toughest 2. I actually think Purdue might be the worst 2, but UConn doesn't play.
Okay, yeah.
Their conference is so weak. It's kind of like watching Cincinnati come out the Big 12 and be undefeated, or Texas Tech, and you're like, well, you haven't played anybody all year.
You haven't played nobody, yeah.
Duke is battle-tested with or without injuries. I actually think they'll be the one coming out of the bracket.
And outside of ACC. They played it outside of ACC, so it's not like...
And they got the most quad wins.
Yeah,
when you think about Shire, the one thing, and I'll go on record saying I wasn't the biggest supporter when we hired Shire. I actually thought it should have been Jeff Capel or Johnny Dawkins or, one of the Hurley. Like, I actually was leaning more to that direction, but I can admit when I'm wrong. He's done a tremendous job in the recruiting trail to replace all his starters from last year and still be in this position. He's done a tremendous job with in-game adjustments, out-of-timeout plays, getting great shots and great looks for an Isaiah Evans. He's just done enough for me to say, although he's not Self's resume or Patino's resume or Cal's resume yet, he's probably the best young coach in college basketball at this point. That's all I got to say about that.
Yeah, okay, Forrest. So thank you for that very open, optimistic version you gave me about this East bracket. But I know the real inside you are saying, oh, man, we're Duke. As long as we come out and play our game, they're not going to beat us. I was looking more for that kind of analysis than this. You trying to act like I don't know what you already think about Duke. Just hey, say it with your chest. Just say, hey, listen, I got them coming out this bracket.
I do, but the injuries scare me. Like if we were full strength like everybody else for the most part, There's no question in my mind. We're not even having this conversation because nobody on here playing their best game is beating us if we're playing our best game. And even our worst games, we're still finding ways to win close games. So we beat the Floridas, we beat Michigan, we beat the Michigan State. Like, we've beat a lot of these teams that are these top seeds, either on the road, neutral sites. We're used to the prime time in the lights. And we're going to experience all the hate in the world, and we're ready for it. So the reality is,
you already know what's coming. You know who the number one is.
How they go will be based on when we get Foster back, if we get him back.
Okay, and I'm glad you say that, because I was going to, before I say my pick, do you think that you guys will get Foster back in 10 days?
No, I don't think he'll come back until at least the Final Four.
Okay, so with that being said, I believe if you had Foster, I believe you beat Michigan State in the Elite Eight. I believe that you can still beat them without Foster. That's not the thing. But I just believe that as of right now, Michigan State is healthier than you guys. And like, you guys got All-Americans everywhere, right? I mean, like, you got high school All-Americans everywhere. Duke is Duke. We know what they can do. Duke has very good defense this year. They have very good offense. When I see one thing that I see about with Duke is that they could play a subpar game and still beat you. Teams like that are dangerous. When, all right, we just got to we got this. We've been here before. We got this. So I can see Michigan State and Duke being a seesaw game back and forth and Duke prevailing. But without Foster, and comes a little bit of my hate too, because it's in my heart.
I was expecting it.
It's in my heart. But I got Michigan State coming out. I got H to the Izzo getting back to another Final Four, man. So I'm hoping for it, but I'm hoping. I'm just going to say I'm hoping for it. I'm hoping for it. But if Duke is full, if Duke is healthy, if you even get the other guy back after the Siena game, I can still see you guys going to the Final Four and still being in the championship game. But
at the end of the day, we get Gumba back. That was probably where the biggest gap was, because we're only playing two traditional big guys at that point.
Yeah.
And one is the ACC Defensive Player of the Year in Malik Brown. And so you put him, though, in a position where he might need to score a little bit more and not just play his role as a starter. Mm-hmm. So we get Gumba back. That's rebounding, shot blocking.
Extra big man. Just extra big man to put on someone. Yeah. Defense.
Yeah. So I think defensively we get better. I think offensively we get better, because now you've got lob action in play. Yeah. You've got offensive rebounding in play that's different, and he can pass. So I think Gumba will come back. Like, that's not a question. He will come back. We'll still run at least 8 deep, but with Harris coming off the bench, you watch for him in this tournament. He's not played well. He's one of the All-American freshmen we got. He actually was, I think, Gumba's teammate in high school, and he was more the highly touted person of those two. If he can actually get in and give us some minutes off the bench, knock down a couple shots, he actually can add to that Isaiah Evans outside shooting. Even Caden Boozer made a couple outside shots. You got Big Booze who can make outside shots. Like, if our outside shots are going, they're going to be really tough to beat, because most teams are sagging in the paint trying to stop Boozer from scoring and a double teaming and triple teaming.
Yeah.
So if we making open shots, we won't lose.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And so if I recall, your Final Four, you have Duke, you have Houston, because Houston's had a problem. You had Michigan coming out of the Midwest, right? Mm-hmm. And then obviously you had Arizona coming out the top. So Arizona versus Michigan, you said you wanted to see it. If it happens, who you got?
You know what? I'm actually taking Arizona in that matchup. And there's one specific reason. And this is where I'll add my little hate in my blood. Elliot Cadeau is not that guy, right? Like, he's never beat Duke. So I'm just going to throw that in as a little ad-lib, my little Jeezy ad-lib. But the reality is I think their guard play is going to be superior or inferior to an Arizona. And Arizona is one of those teams out there that actually can match up physically and with size with them. So they're not going to be scared off by, the big 7-footer in the middle and by, Lawrence Funderburk's little brother.
Yeah.
They're going to be just fine on the inside. And I think they're the team that's going to come out and prevail and come out on top.
Great.
What I do now?
Man, did you have to call little Lawrence Thunderberg little brother? My man got a name.
I mean, he does. This is just my commentary. This is just how I'm seeing it.
So, from that side, it's my Michigan Wolverines versus my Arizona Wildcats. I tell you what, that Kaysen injury is bigger than what they're leading on. Like,
I picked Michigan if he's there.
Yeah, like He's obviously, yes, he's good on defense, but he's a knockdown shooter. And when you have that on the floor, you can spread the floor out. You can make them have to force to guard you. You can bust up that zone. I'm going with Arizona. Like you said, Arizona has it. They're healthy. They have an inside game. They have an outside game. They have guards that can shoot, pass, and dribble. And what did you say wins at the end in Madness time? It's guards. Yeah, I got them coming out of that side of the bracket too. So with you have Duke and Houston. My Houston Cougars.
Man, you got
a rematch.
Team in the bracket is your team. I mean,
a rematch. I told you I got about 7-8 teams. I told you.
Prairie View running.
Hey, I told you I got 7-8 teams.
I can.
So you already heard that. Yep. So now I got 3 of my 7. I got 3 of the 4 teams that you talked about. They're in the Final Four. So I got a 75% chance of winning. But I think my 75% is actually more about 20% known coming from you. So coming from the other side, Houston, Duke. What's the key to this matchup? Who gonna win?
You know, I think this is where Caleb Foster comes back like Willis Reed in the second half, and proves to be too much for a Houston. And I think similar to the conversation we had about Patino and remembering what happened last year, this is a rematch of a Final Four matchup last year. And last year, Duke had all but closed the door on Houston's chances of being in the national championship until they got cold. They stopped making shots. They stopped being aggressive. Defensively, they were giving up too much at the end. Shire's not going to forget that. And although the majority of that team is gone, Shire's going to remember, and he's going to have that team prepared for any and all situations. And I think this year's Duke team, although the talent was better last year overall, and they were deeper last year, I think the core, call it 7 to 8 guys this year, play better together as a group. Isaiah Evans has come into his own.
He's nice. Isaiah Evans is nice. He shoots them. He's tall and lanky. He kind of remind me of a basketball version of Wiz Khalifa, like the way he's all lanky and stuff. He kind
of has the same body type.
Yeah.
He's either going to give you the thing is he's getting better at not just shooting. Last year he was just a shooter. So if you stopped him from shooting threes, you've taken him out the game. This year he's got a little.
He's driving.
Game. He's got a little mid-range game. He's getting to the cup more. And actually in the ACC tournament, he started rebounding more. He was actually one of the top rebounders. Without Gumba playing and Foster playing, is actually one of the top in that space. So I think Duke is going to be a close game. Don't get me wrong. Like, this isn't going to be no blowout type of situation. But I think the experience of last year, this was kind of the revenge tour of what happened last year. And Shire's not going to let this team. He's going to will them to the difference, and he will be the difference maker. Not a player. There will be a call or something he will do out of a timeout or in a situation that will get somebody a great shot, and they'll execute.
Well, I hope he does
all the way coming out to the championship.
I hope they don't. I'm just telling you from my
Hope's not a strategy, though. Hope's not a strategy.
Hey, it starts somewhere. You got to start with hope.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Certain people say keep hope alive, but
it
don't happen for everybody.
So now you have Duke and you have Arizona. I think I saw this show before. Who do you have coming out as a champion, Mr. I'm not biased?
I'm not biased at all. I don't pick Duke every year. And I think Arizona's going to be a really tough out. They've played well all year, probably just as deserving as Duke. If Duke didn't win maybe against Michigan in some of the later games to be the number 1 overall seed. That's why I got them being in the championship. But, at the end of the day, I think I go back to Coach K and his first 2 championships in 91 and 92, and they were both in Indianapolis. And so he got his first one there. Shire's been knocking on the door. Shire gets his first one in Indianapolis. They cut the nets down, and y'all hear from me for the next 365 about the Duke Blue Devils.
I already saw a video of you doing a victory against North Carolina last time you played, so I already saw that victory. So I don't want to be nowhere near you if they're in the championship game.
You don't want to be near me. I
don't want to be nowhere near you.
We take a lot of punishment throughout the year.
You do.
We're kind of like the Yankees of college basketball. You either love us or you hate us. There's no way in between. And we take a lot of hate, but the reality is we got big backs over here. You know what I mean? So we're in the gym. We ain't worried about all that. We're ready for all the smoke. Everything people want to say. They want to hate because we're successful, but you didn't win it. So everybody picks the field versus Duke every year, and even though their teams stink, UNC, and don't make noise at all. So we're ready for it. We're ready for all the smoke.
This is what I wanted to hear. This is the guy I'm talking about right here. My man, Terrance Vaughns, coming in, got Duke winning. It's no surprise, but at the same time, they're the number 1 overall seed. I mean, so I can't, if it's your favorite team, they're the number 1 team. I can't expect you to pick anybody else. Okay, so let's go there.
Matter. It comes down if
health will matter. And if
Foster's not back, he'll be the difference.
Yes, and if he's not back, him coming back. If he's not back, then that could be their hindrance.
That could be their hindrance. If if Caden doesn't play well, you don't have another point guard on the squad.